we're going live. Let's see.
Okay.
Should be here and setting up. And one. It's slowly, inch by inch.
Okay. Looks like we're live.
Okay, hello everyone. How is you doing? I am here with my special guest, Tamu Ngina. How are you?
I am fine. Thank you.
There
Thank
we
you.
go. I always get confused when I look at the YouTube live. It's like this 30-second delay, and
Right.
it's like talking to yourself. So I'm not looking at the chat rooms. Just let you know, I'll try to get in there later. So how
Okay.
are you? I haven't seen you in a while.
I am doing absolutely positively amazing.
Well,
I
you look
had a wonderful
fabulous.
day. Thank you. Been taking my iron and I've been
Good.
getting sleep. And let's see what else have I been taking. Omega 7. So,
Omega 7.
yes, omega 7.
Well, I
Yeah.
also, you had a birthday over the weekend.
Yes, I did.
Yeah, well, you know what they say? It's always good to collect them.
Yes, I've turned 27 again for the 20th time.
I don't believe that. Um, well, happy belated birthday.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, what is on your mind these days?
What's been on my mind?
Talk to
Well,
me.
it's been my mission lately to really encourage people to, as I like to call it, uh, protect and mind their holy trinity of self.
Ooh, ooh, that's good. So, when we talk about the Trinity of Self, what is that is defined as?
Well, it's twofold. The
Yeah.
one that we're mostly used to is mind, body, spirit, or mind, body, soul. And I also see there's another part of our Trinity, which is our conscious mind, our subconscious mind, and our superconscious mind.
Yes, yes, absolutely. And that actually correlates to salt, sulfur, and mercury.
Oh, okay. Learn something new. Salt, sulfur, and mercury. I know that sulfur is that a mineral? I'm not really sure.
Well,
But I know that it's very important for the sustenance of the body, sulfur is. And I actually take sulfur almost on a daily basis.
it's interesting because in alchemy, these are actually conditions of
Mm-hmm.
the spirit of the body
Oh,
and of the soul.
okay.
Alchemy
Oh,
salt is really it's the body.
okay.
Alchemy sulfur is the soul,
Okay.
and alchemy mercury is the spirit.
Mm,
Now,
that's interesting.
I have found it, I've been really studying this book, and I know not to digress, but we shall. But it's not really digressing. So, when I see this tree of life now,
Uh-huh. Yes.
what I
And what
see,
book is that?
this is actually the,
Oh, real. Ooh, ooh. That looks, oh my goodness. One more book. Okay, can you hold it up one more time just so I can see the author's name? Robert Allen Bartlett. Okay. That's a beautiful
so
cover.
it's absolutely fantastic. Let me tell you this, what I did not know is
Uh-huh.
that there are no schools of alchemy
Mm-hmm.
existing today. The last one that was known shut down in 1991.
Oh, okay. All right.
So think
Interesting.
about this. There is no schools teaching this any longer.
Mm-hmm.
So when I see the tree of life here, what I now see is also
Okay.
then you have polarity,
Okay.
positive, negative. You
Mm-hmm.
have the four elements and then the two elements that come from within.
Oh, awesome. I'm just adjusting my screen. My
Uh,
camera is
yeah,
off to
yeah,
the left and
I know.
wow.
So
Awesome.
when you begin to realize that this alchemy, I entered a interview today, Barbara, excuse me, DeLong.
She's
And
amazing. I sent her
oh,
your way. I told her,
yeah,
yes, she is
yeah.
awesome.
I'm going to be posting that interview later tonight. Fabulous, fabulous, fabulous. That's all I got to say.
Oh, can I show? Did you get a chance to look at the video that I made of her cards?
Yes. Why don't you show those? You know, she's going to send me a deck of those and you can't
Awesome.
buy them. Look at that. So
So
these
what is this?
are the cosmic,
Universal wisdom?
yes, the cosmic deck of an initiation, right?
Yes, cosmic deck of initiation. And this, I mean, I've been around a lot of tarot decks and oracle decks and what have you decks. And this is completely and utterly unique. It is very original in the sense being, brought into this physical world. And well, that's the title. And, this deck is evidence of a person who has done deep meditation and spiritual practice. It is absolutely amazing.
I didn't realize this, and I'll just share this with everyone because you got to watch the video, the interview. Um, so she gave the story of how this came about, how she actually came up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And so let me ask you, Tamu, because you'd be the perfect person to do this. She said the problem she had with the tarot was that
Uh-huh.
it had a lot of negative energy to it. And she was challenged by her friends. Well, then do something better. And she came up with this.
Mm-hmm.
And my question to you is, do you find that it emanates a certain type of energy, a positive energy?
Which one? The
The
cosmic
deck.
deck or the
Yes, the
tarot?
cosmic
Oh,
deck.
yes, definitely. And um, yeah, there's a lot of positive energy. However, I try to move away from the positive and negative. I just think of it as it's a deck that really encourages true growth and
Yeah,
in
because
a
the answer
very,
lies within.
yes, in a very accessible way. Now, I also feel that the tarot, the 22 major arcana of the tarot, also engender uh, positive, growth, towards spiritual growth. But it's more of something, it really, you really have to do a lot of study and to really kind of break the code.
Okay.
And this is a little more accessible
Yeah,
and
interesting.
without the baggage of the imagery that the tarot may present to some people.
Yeah, because I think that it's gotten a bad rap. I mean, if
It
you
really
kind
has. It's
yeah,
right. Yeah.
yeah, I
It's
agree
very
with
misunderstood. It took me 15 years to make friends with the traditional tarot deck.
you. No, I now listen, I believe that. I absolutely do. It's like you have, I tell people this all the time. We have these natural biases, you know,
Right.
and particularly if you come out particularly of one particular religion or another, that the tarot's always been evil, you know, do this garlic
Right.
the
It
whole
has
bit.
that as well.
Yeah, and like alchemy. Now, see, I
Hmm.
love these mandalas and I believe that is the proper term, right?
Yes. Mandalas or
Yes.
mandala. Yes.
Okay.
Hmm.
And the significance, as Barbara was telling in the interview, is that some of these have some very strong, I don't know if magical is the word, but they
Hmm.
are very sacred. And the fact that
Well,
they open up portals.
it is sacred geometry and, mathematics, geometry, all of that is part of who we are on the inner and the outer.
And I believe that this is where we get so, I think, unbalanced, is that we were never taught this aspect of looking within,
Hmm.
defining ourselves. What is yourself? How is that measured? By what point can you look at that? You see, and I look at these, and there's some that I'm very drawn towards.
Hmm.
You know? So, what have you found in your experience working with the deck?
Well, I find it to be very accurate. I don't know if accurate is the right word, but
Oh, I like that one. Universal forgiveness.
I think, I mean, the deck is amazing. I
That is
can't sing its
outstanding.
praises any higher. Her little white book that comes with the deck is very succinct. Um, I found it to be very hopeful, very
Yeah,
spot on.
excellent.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you, when we got finished with the interview, I told her, I said, I just want to give you a hug. There's such positive energy emanating from her presence. It's just, and it's actually transmittable.
Yep. Well, all energy from each other is transmittable. We are all connected to each other on the subconscious and superconscious level. And that's probably the second reason, and maybe it's the primary reason why I feel that it is important that we guard and nurture our Holy Trinity of self.
And it's all so much just like I'm learning in alchemy. That is also as well. It's the superconscious, it's the subconscious, and then it's the conscious mind.
Right. And see the subconscious mind. See, I'm all about learning how to truly discipline the conscious mind, because the conscious mind is that part of us that we're operating with,
Yeah.
that we're outwardly, that's in control, sort of, that we think at least we can navigate and decide what we're going to look at. But it's the subconscious mind that, as my friend Chris Monet says, is like a 3-year-old child. It absorbs everything.
Yeah,
It has no discernment and no judgment, the subconscious mind.
no temperament.
And the fortunate and unfortunate thing, it's unfortunate because it does absorb everything, but it is through our subconscious mind that we create our life for the better, or we destruct our life. And yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, 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 no. Because keep on with that. Keep on with that because it's really getting to a point that I want to make after that.
And so, I really feel that it's important that we use our conscious mind responsibly, that we discipline ourselves so that we protect what we allow to go into our subconscious mind. And I'll give you an example. Network news,
Yeah.
for one, it's very laden with a lot of violence, emotional violence, physical violence, visual violence. I'll never forget. So I can't even remember how long ago it was when Muammar Gaddafi was captured. And I remember it being on CNN. And regardless of what you feel or don't feel about Muammar Gaddafi, he was a human being. And regardless of what he did to other people, just, when I saw the image of him being captured on CNN and killed,
Yeah. Yeah.
right before, I'm like watching it, and it's like it took me several seconds to realize what I was looking at. It's like I'm looking at it and I was fixated because I hadn't seen him in like maybe 20 years on television. And I'm looking, and all of a sudden it took maybe 20 seconds for me to realize that I had just seen this man murdered on television. And it stabbed me. And see, I know what happened, and I can, make the choice to turn away or not. But although, it happened so quickly, I didn't get a chance to. But see, that image gets embedded in your psyche and your subconscious mind. And when you allow yourself to be exposed to real violence or even simulated violence, it affects you. And then
Yes.
people wonder why later on they all of a sudden had this bout of anxiety, or wonder why they can't sleep at night, you know?
Well, when you were talking, so um, in my mind, I'm playing the picture, and what I am
Mm-hmm.
seeing throughout mankind's history, people have always been drawn to the macabre, particularly murder. Whether it was in the dark ages of people being hung, people being burned, people being beheaded. And it always drew a crowd. And today, you're right. What we have, that medium is now broadcast 24/7.
It's 24/7, and now it's simulated,
Yeah.
you
Yes.
know, and not everybody. I mean, I've never been interested in the gore and horror movies. I mean, when I was younger, I watched them because my mother loved horror movies. So,
Well,
you know,
listen,
I,
I grew up with Boris Karloff and Lon Chaney, and I was of the era of when we had primarily the UFOs. I mean, it was,
Mhm.
it was just a transference of the image. So, my view now is not so much of the Wolfman and what have you, but it's of the little green guys.
Right, right.
So
Yeah.
let's talk about, because I want to get back into the point of when we talk about the subconscious.
Hmm.
I was never particularly, I've heard the term before talking about the super subconscious, and I had never actually really thought about that before.
Right. Yeah, I remember you mentioned that to me last week. I have to admit, I haven't had a chance to do much research on it.
Mm-hmm.
And unfortunately, even though I do sort of have a resource I could ask, every time I speak to my eldest son, I always forget to ask him about that. And like I said before, I was on the phone with him for a couple of minutes before your call, and I should probably ask him about it.
Well, it's something
So,
I'd be very curious about. In fact, I have a paper that
hmm.
I am going to get an interview when we get, because I've been waiting and I finally got it in, that will at least allow me to be a good backseat driver.
Okay,
Yes, as
okay.
your sons. So, one of the things I'm finding about alchemy is that it really focuses in on the inside. The answer lies
Right.
within the creative
Yes.
ability.
Yes.
Now, one of the things I didn't realize is that alchemy also has a part of healing.
Okay.
It's where doctors learned. It was through the alchemists. It was the
Okay.
alchemists who knew about not only the biology, but also the physiology.
Hmm.
Now, they say, and I never thought about this, that every illness
Right.
in a human
Uh-huh.
can be directly related to a vibration going against a set frequency of
Okay.
that particular organ.
Right. Okay. So every illness is a direct result of a vibration
Hmm.
that's going against whatever the particular organ.
Yep, the set
Okay.
frequency of that organ.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, Louise Hay wrote her book, Heal Thyself, and she had a subsection of that book for like the metaphysical meaning behind various illnesses. And like, for instance, anger affects the liver,
Yes, yes.
sadness affects the heart, you know,
Anger will also be a direct contributor to high blood pressure,
right, right.
um, arterial
Everything
sclerosis.
has
Yeah.
a frequency, including the fear that we subject ourselves to. It has a frequency.
Yes. How about this next one? A dissonance of a person's waveform or field of energy.
Hmm.
Now, for alchemy, medicine seeks to restore the harmony of our true inner selves.
Right.
As I'm learning, as you learn about who you are, as you
Hmm.
begin to understand the inner man is really the power base, you can
Right.
begin to find out that how we get out of balance in life will affect us in different symptoms.
Right. So if we're out of balance on the inside, it's going to reflect itself on the outside. And
Correct.
that's the whole concept, at least for me, the way I interpret so above as below.
That's below.
If our subconscious mind is not, treated like a beautiful garden and nurtured and watered properly, then we're going to manifest according to what's in our subconscious, whether we like it or
Or
not,
not.
whether we do it with intent or not. And that's why I encourage people to, use their intention first through disciplining their conscious mind. What is it they choose to read? What is it they choose to listen to, watch? What kind of visual they put in front of themselves?
Yes.
Because, and also, we can't control the thoughts that come into our mind.
Correct.
But we can control what we choose to dwell on. And what we dwell on is what's going to multiply. So if we allow negative thoughts to flow into our mind, and then we're holding on to them for dear life, like, oh, I'm such a stupid person, or I'm such this or that, or I'm broke, I have no money, I'm always broke. But yet we want money and we desire money, and we say, I am, I have all abundance. But then every time we open our checkbook, we're like, oh, I got no money. So then, there's no intention there. So what's going to come out is you're going to be broke.
Exactly. You're going to be broke.
You're going to manifest more of being broke.
So adding to that, you see, I'm learning planetary energy.
Okay.
Now, you see, as you learn, you begin to go, oh, okay, now I figured that out. So
right.
Planetary energy influences plants, colors, tones, parts of the body, disease, medical effects, herbs, stones, metals.
Okay. And is that all from that book you've been reading?
Yeah.
I can't wait to get that book. I thought I was done with books.
And I'm going, okay. So what we don't understand, and this is where, again, alchemy comes in, is that everything in the universe with all energy, because the first basic principle of alchemy is that one is all.
Right.
All is one.
Right.
I never understood. And by the way, folks, you can now, let me just pull it up. What is it? The octopus? Is that what they call that? Let me get to it.
While you look that up, I was listening to Wayne Dyer. That's beautiful. That is really beautiful. I was listening.
You know what this is?
Well, I see the double triangle, and I see, it looks like a dragon, two dragons swallowing each other's tail.
It's the serpent and the dragon.
Oh, right. I see there's wings up at the top, so that's the dragon and not at the bottom.
This
is
God.
Okay.
See, it's matter and ether.
And ether is represented by the serpent.
I believe it is. Could be other way around, but that's what that is now.
I would think that the dragon would be ether and the serpent
ether
would be matter. I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Well, I now understand what that means. I never understood it. So this is the first law of alchemy.
Oh, okay.
And everything within it is where we get the elements, where we get the zodiac, where we get the polarity. Okay. See, that's what that is polarity.
So that's like a different version of the yin and yang.
Yeah. I didn't know that. So Wayne Dyer, let's talk.
Right. So Wayne Dyer, he mentioned something about the number 18, which 18 in Hebrew is chai, which means life. Chai. Okay, that's the word C-H-A-I, chai.
I can't get that chai,
you got it. You got a chai.
Yeah. And I'm so German that Dutch German is actually what it is. So yeah, go on.
What are you? Is that Pennsylvania Dutch? Pennsylvania Dutch in there?
My mother. You don't ever like to give your mother's maiden name because you got people out there. But the point is that Dutch German.
Okay.
So and then on the father's side is Rhineland.
Okay, and that's very German, right?
Steiger.
So what was 18, I saying? So 18, he said that he wrote the number 18 out to put it on his dashboard of his car so he could look at it every day, because it meant like 1 and infinity, that there's one infinity, so which
Okay.
represents the oneness of all, the
Yes,
one, and then the number 8, which on its side is infinity. And I thought that was really cool.
that is very cool. I hadn't thought, and the visual imagery is so important. You know, one of the things that I quote from the Old Testament is Habakkuk
Okay.
2:3, and it says that you have to write the vision down, for it's
Yes.
appointed time, and though it tarry, it surely shall come to pass. Now, as I read the history behind that, Habakkuk was a prophet that when the children of Israel returned from captivity of
Mm-hmm.
Babylon, they
Okay.
they basically were like, well, Solomon's temple was there. It's a glory of Israel and it's gone.
Mm-hmm.
And so the point was is that Habakkuk went at the city gate
Okay.
and inscribed the temple.
Okay.
And that was writing down the vision.
Right. Right.
It's a technique
Yes.
that's used today with the
Right.
city.
Vision board.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly. See how much
See?
things change? They really truly stay the same.
They
The human
do.
spirit has not changed for a millennium. We are still the same.
And that is another question. Why? I keep on saying by now we should have at least graduated to, you know, junior high. I think we're still in elementary school.
Well, I mean, I feel that, as I mentioned to you before, I feel that some of us have,
Yeah, I
and that
think some of
there's
us have.
those that
Like
are still
Barbara,
here.
I told Barbara, I said, I think you're in high school and I'm still here in kindergarten. It's like running. So let me ask you, I see this painting behind you. I'm drawn to it. Did you do this?
Yes, I'm a visual artist along with a licensed massage therapist, a professional reflexologist, and I facilitate meditation. I'm a mother and I enjoy painting. And this is a khamsa, which
Okay.
represents 5, which represents the mother, which is protection, and which is why it's in red, because that's the blood of the mother.
Yes.
It's also is used in Africa and the Middle East as a symbol of, like, say, the hand of God, the hand of Fatima. And this is, the downward facing triangle, which for me is like the divine feminine. It's a feminine principle. And then we have the Om, which is the primordial sound of the universe, which is that primary vibration, the
Oh,
vibration of our heartbeat, the first sound that we hear as our body is being formed inside of the mother's womb, which is what this triangle also is.
that's beautiful.
And on my channel on YouTube, I always have, this is sort of like my co-host, I always have a different painting up, because all of my paintings are up for adoption unless stated otherwise.
Okay. I like that. I love that. Now, can I see on the top of the
Mhm.
5 points of the mother there, in the center? Yes.
The all-seeing
It's
eye.
yes, I saw that. And it looks like that there is a triangle. Is that right? Is that what I'm seeing in there?
Yeah,
Yeah.
actually, and
Okay.
you know what? I didn't even think about it, because actually, this was designed off of a pair of earrings that I usually always wear these earrings. I never, because see, every piece of jewelry that I wear
Yes.
um, has a spiritual significance for me. And even though I have on a different, oh, I took those earrings off when I took a nap. So I thought I had I thought I forgot what earrings I have on, but I always have, because I was raised never to go out of the house without your earrings on and lip gloss. So these are little
That's good.
hamsas
Good
on
advice.
my ear. And so this
Oh,
is the
yeah.
model for this. And these are, I usually wear these ad nauseum.
They're
So,
beautiful.
and like this labradorite pendant, labradorite, which is a stone of magic, a stone of wisdom, and a meteorite from Argentina. Well, it fell out of the sky into
Ah,
Argentina. This is, both keep me celestially minded as well as grounded.
excellent.
And I wear this star. It's all about balance.
It is.
Yeah.
It is. You
So,
know, I would have saw that as the Star of David and never understanding the
mhm.
significance behind that. I mean, it's about balance, Tamu. It
Right.
really is.
Yes. Well, I did buy this probably about 20 years ago when I was coming out of the Port Authority in New York, and it was when I was still pretty religious. So,
Mhm.
yeah, I bought it as a Star of David.
Yeah.
I was like, wow, that's really big. So when I wear it, people be like, super Jew. So, but I'm not religious anymore. But to me, you don't throw the baby out with the bathwater, and
It's
it's a
beautiful.
symbol of
Well,
balance.
listen, I still recall the story from Rabbi Fuchs. When
Hmm.
I was dating a Jewish woman and was considering about converting. And he simply told me, he said, Wayne, do the Jewish people a favor and don't convert. And all these years later, I can look back and I get what he was talking about. So it's, but how that, as I see the Star of David, it really is about the balance within.
Right.
It
Yes.
really is. And go ahead. You were going to say something.
Well, I was just going to say that with just about anything, no one culture
Hmm.
owns anything. And, this is a Star David, but it's also a double triangle in many cultures. You can find it on
Yeah.
temples in
Yes.
India, in Africa, all over the world. So, there's a reason, you know, our ancestors utilized these symbols, and not one culture owns a symbol.
Bingo.
It
And that's what
belongs
I'm
to all
finding.
of humanity.
Yes. Yes. And it's not just because you may read about it in a particular vein, whether it be Judaism, whether it be Christianity, Islam, we have that commonality. And you were
Hmm.
just talking about the hand on your five figures. So as I am studying continually,
Here you go.
there you
Yes.
go.
Yes. The five
And
elements.
the
Yes.
five
Bina,
elements.
Ruach, Hod, Yesod, Malchut. Yep.
So this is creation, folks. It's like the infinite being put within us that what we are supposed to see when we see our hands is creation, right?
Hmm.
It is.
Hmm.
And it's the power of the imprint that each of us have, the uniqueness as to the palm.
Well, we are co-creators.
Why can't we seem to get that through our heads? You know, um, I guess when I began to learn this was back when I was in marketing and sales. And, they teach this in business schools. But
Hmm.
what I began to find out was what they were teaching to the athletes, the top performers.
Hmm.
And today I think about the athletes like Jordan Spieth, these young professional golfers that are coming up. And as golf is it's the game of idiocy because there's no perfect game.
Okay.
And I can speak this, and I'm sure probably in the chat room we'll see there that as well. But my point is what they teach them, and they teach the Olympians as well. We have the Olympian Training Center down here in Colorado Springs,
Okay.
and they teach them visualization techniques.
Hmm. Hmm.
See it before you do it.
Right.
And
Right.
then when you're doing it, you've already seen it.
Yes.
Isn't that the same thing that you find when you counsel people?
It's very true. The
Right?
power of manifestation, or as they call it, the LOA, the law of attraction. You
Yeah.
know, I think in our modern society, for whatever reason, it's not common knowledge, and it really should be. I just spent this morning, I spent an hour over at the middle school. I was invited there by the seventh grade teacher to come and do mindfulness meditation with the 12-year-olds, and
Wow.
it was my second time
Outstanding.
doing it. And, it was just a wonderful experience being in a room with all of these fresh young minds.
So what
And
was the reaction?
they were enthralled. Well, number one, I had my big quartz crystal bowl that I played, because of vibration. And, I encouraged them to focus on their breathing, their inhalation and their exhalation. And I explained to them, that there's no moment but now. And in the moment of now, we can always choose what we decide to focus on, so.
Outstanding.
And they
Oh,
enjoyed it and they
I mean,
participated.
that's kind of news that should be going out. So, all right. So 12-year-olds right at that
Yes.
point of
Yes.
adolescence,
Yes.
which, by the way, most people don't know this physiology.
Mm-hmm.
They're really not children and they're not adults.
Right. Yeah.
We don't
Yeah.
think about this, but our species in this transition zone, which, by the way, it's one of the greatest travesties of our society, is that we don't have the rite of passage anymore for the males
Right.
or females.
Right. Yes.
I mean,
Yes.
Tamu, would you agree with me that that
I
is probably the biggest tragedy that we inflict upon the next generation?
Right. I think that's the biggest tragedy. I mean, within the Jewish circles, you do have, the bar and bat mitzvah,
Yeah.
but I think it's still not quite as universal that it should even be like a secular version,
I don't know in the
something that
Western culture of such a right. Do you?
other than getting a driver's license when you're 15 or 16.
I want to retract that. I guess maybe the closest thing that I remember, I mean, I was
Mm-hmm.
born in 1955, was the Boy Scouts. I mean, the
Mm-hmm.
Boy Scouts was for me going from you start out as the Cub Scout, go to
Right.
Weeblo, and then it really was a rite of passage in a sense.
Right. Right.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And we're really missing that to the detriment of our future
yeah,
generation. We're raising in public school, if you want to get me started, a
yeah. No,
generation
no,
of
this is,
children that are not really able, they're not really taught how to think, how to critically think. And, I was just talking to one of the teachers who's a friend of mine. And, she says that she spends majority of her time trying to get the children to think. They don't know how to think because we're teaching to the test
yeah.
starting in the third grade, teaching the kids this is information, you have 10 minutes to do these 15 questions. That burns the brain out, that destroys the self-esteem, that causes a child who, if that child doesn't have their parents at home to kind of reinforce them, or even a teacher to reinforce them, it encourages the child to shut down, intellectually, emotionally.
So as I see it today, sadly, what we're actually pushing through the system
Mm-hmm.
are dead souls. I mean, they don't
Well,
understand. I don't mean that literally, folks. What I mean is
right.
metaphorically.
Metaphorically, souls that are being shut down. However, there are, because there's always hope. And
There
I
is.
never want to overly focus on the negative, but there are, like, for instance, my son goes to charter school. And
Yeah.
even though they will have to start with the teaching to the test on certain things, there are a Waldorf method charter school,
Excellent.
which is, they use the Rudolf Steiner's philosophy, which is to teach according to the child's developmental stages. So they kind of get 50-50. And so there is hope. And what I like to encourage people is, there's always going to exist polarity in the world.
Has
We
to.
need the yin and yang. We
Yeah.
need the masculine and the feminine. We need the black and white. We need the negative and the positive, because without the negative and the positive, the seed of our soul, who we are and what we're put on this planet to do, is to grow and develop and learn the various lessons that we need to learn in order to sprout to life outside of this physical dimension.
Yeah.
So it is up to us there's always going to exist these injustices in the world, but what do we choose to focus on? What do
Well,
we choose to focus on?
usually, unfortunately, it's always the negative aspect. I like what Barbara said today. She said,
Mm-hmm.
what makes us think that life has to be so difficult?
Right,
I
right.
mean, and it's taught to us, you
Mm-hmm.
know. And when you were talking about children at 12, here they are, adolescents. They're
Mm-hmm.
learning something that I wish I could have been exposed to when I was 12. Just the thought, planting that seed.
Mm-hmm.
And they responded. Is that what you were saying? That
Oh,
they,
definitely. Before I left, they were like, "When are you coming back again?" I like to post on Facebook positive things because, there's
yes.
enough negative
Oh,
going around on social media to fill a love boat. So I posted, that I was thankful that I was able to go into the classroom. And one of the mothers of one of the children, she's a friend of mine on Facebook. And she said that when her daughter came home, that's all she talked about, how it was the highlight of her day, me being in the
wow.
classroom, and that it was a
Yes.
wonderful experience. And it wasn't just her. I mean, I could see it in the faces of the children. I raised three grown sons. I have one little one still at home. So I can tell children's energy if they're paying attention or they're not. And I would say 98% they were tuned in
Excellent.
and
Yeah.
they were sucking it up. And that energy, I mean, I think I wish I had recorded it. It was like my best game ever.
I love to have
Because
seen it.
they were
Yeah.
sending me that good energy, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna match it with even more. And just to see their faces, it just warmed my heart. Warmed my heart.
So why don't we have schools of alchemy that where we can teach this?
Well, we're starting right now. We're doing it now, little
Yeah.
by little, each one of us.
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know?
I like I said, folks, and I haven't even seen what's out there. Let's see who's actually
Yeah,
checking
I've
us
been.
out. Um, I don't know. Can you see that?
I see the chat room.
Yes. Okay. Yeah.
Yes. Oh, that's even bigger because my little tiny screen. Wow.
Yeah. So there you go. I'm seeing
Yeah.
this as it's going up there. So yeah, I want to open a private elementary kind of school to incorporate. Hey, listen, I say spot on with that. I really, I mean, I as I was shocked. I just got to be
Hmm.
candid with you when
Hmm.
I could not find today in 2017 that there is a school that teaches the arts of alchemy.
Well, yeah. And, I look at it this way: when we start to wake up, we are called to step into those roles. You
Yeah.
know, maybe not at this moment something as super adventurous as that, but even small study groups where, everybody is on equal footing. And I believe in start where you are. And, my YouTube channel is an extension of my ministry that I have, and which is called Sanctuary Center Within, because I really believe that each and every one of us has within us all that we need. We just have to learn how to tap into it. And that is the third part of your holy trinity of yourself, which is the superconscious. And the superconscious, for me at least, represents our higher self, our God self. And the way to access that is through learning how to sit in stillness, meditation, sitting in stillness.
I love that. I'm learning that the purest form of energy is no motion,
Mm-hmm.
complete stillness. And I don't know if I can actually comprehend that because I don't know what complete stillness is. I mean, even when we sleep, it's not really stillness.
Well, complete stillness, as in not necessarily physical stillness, but stillness to the point where you are no longer thinking. It's that moment of presence, that moment of existing in pure consciousness. And I've probably sort of felt that, I would say, like a handful of times. One of the things that I enjoy about receiving craniosacral, I'm actually training right now
What is
as a
that?
cranial. It's where you work, the therapist, you're working hand positions on the cranial bones, hand positions on the sacrum to affect the flow of the cerebral spinal fluid.
Wow.
And something that we may not know, and which I learned in class several weeks ago, is that our cerebral spinal fluid, that's the fluid that flows up and down our spine, actually contains photons.
I believe
So
that.
it actually contains particles of light. So what Carl Sagan said, that we are made of star stuff, of
Yeah.
stardust, we truly are. We are the universe.
So the cerebral
The cerebral
cranial fluid,
spinal,
spinal fluid.
right, the
Yeah.
cerebral spinal fluid. And she was saying to me, because I actually went and had a session with her, I think it was of Friday of last week. I had a session with her, and I was hoping before the session that she would talk to me while she was doing things, kind of like a lesson, you know. And so she did. Eventually, about 40 minutes into it, she started to talk to me, and I was like, yes, thank you. And she said, most of the time when people come for cranial sacral, there's 3 layers of the pulse that you can feel, because you can actually feel the cerebral spinal fluid pulsing between the cranium and between the sacrum.
Yeah.
And she said, there's like 3 pulses, and I can't remember what the names of the 3 pulses are, but it's like an outer layer, a middle layer, and a deep, deep inner layer. And she says, generally people are like on the outer layer, maybe the middle layer, and that's all about physical pain. And she's like, when you receive it, it's like you're pulling way deep down inside into the inner layer, which is the self, the inner sanctum. And I'm like, she is like this cranial sacral goddess to me. She
Yeah.
is just phenomenal that she detected that, because when I'm laying there on the table, I'm just able to go into this place where I barely even feel my body anymore. It's just like I feel this vibration of tingles and stardust just going in and out and dissipating. And it just gets me to a place, I was talking about it on my channel the other day, where it's sort of like, imagine if I have 3 hands, right? There's a third hand here.
Right.
So you have your mind, body, and spirit, and it's sort of out of whack, and you want to get balance in this, and the cranial sacral work kind of helps it all to come into balance. And that's what it does for me. And in those moments where I'm feeling that, it's like just pure awareness, like being outside of myself, sort of looking in. And so for me, I believe that that's the still point. And they even call it a still point in cranial sacral. It's that pure presence.
Wow.
It's that stillness.
Well, as you were talking, I believe we're going to get to this knowledge that um, when you talked about the pain, the fact that
Mm-hmm.
most people are more aware of the outer than
Mm-hmm.
even in the intermediate zone.
Mm-hmm.
And I was reading an article today, I think it was in the New England Journal of Medicine. It was talking about how now doctors are going back and re examining the placebo effect.
Okay.
That it's a known fact that if you take a blind group and
Okay.
you give them, the placebo of what they think that they're taking,
Mm-hmm.
that the effectiveness is about 60%.
Okay.
That people will actually have the effects, which now they understand that where they missed was that the brain, the mind,
Mm-hmm.
has the ability to
Mm-hmm.
basically mask the pain that would then allow the endorphins, the other type of things that we have in our brain to be created naturally.
Right. We got a
Not synthetic.
pharmacy in there.
Exactly. That's what they were trying to say, is that
Hmm.
the brain will synthesize the dopamines, the different type of adrenaline is
We even
another
have
one.
DMT in there.
Yes, we do. And that we're just not trained, because the reason why we feel pain is a
Hmm.
warning sign.
Right, right.
Yeah.
Hmm.
And so we allow the systemic of the symptoms to persist until we
Right,
get to the point where it becomes critical.
right. So, the pain is a warning sign for us to get still,
Yeah.
go inside, and get that homeostasis. But instead of doing that, we focus on the pain,
Yeah.
we focus on the negative.
And that's what happens. And thus, the reason for the painkillers, you got to have that, because it overwhelms the brain, in the mind. You can't, it's the old proverb, you can't build your house in the middle of a storm.
Right. And I just noticed in the chat, you have a subscriber called God is You, and he or she, I'm not sure, says, Tamu, the inner sanctum is scary to many people. And I would agree with this person. Most
Why
people,
is that?
I think a lot of people are afraid of silence. They're afraid of being alone with their thoughts. They're afraid of facing themselves. And, it'd be wonderful to find a way to encourage people. Let's just try to take this step by step, and take your time, and take the time to get to know yourself.
I have an experiment that I tell people to do. I learned
Mm-hmm.
this many, many years ago, that the first step of that is to get into a darkened room where there's no light and stand
Uh-huh.
in that room. The first time, you probably, most people can't do it beyond 5 minutes, because it
Uh-huh.
becomes, but it's a great place that where you can start letting that white noise start coming down, because you actually can hear it.
Uh-huh.
And it works. I know it's a little odd, but it does. It's kind of like a sensor deprivation, but it works, folks.
Yeah.
You know,
Wayne,
yeah.
I hate to say this, but I just realized I need to quick run some water in my sink for just
Yes.
a moment.
Okay.
Before I
It's
close my
live.
I'm so
Okay.
sorry.
No, this is what it
Okay.
is. I can handle it from here. So as we continue on, folks, I'm not nearly as attractive, but as Tamu takes care of what she has to do, I think this is a great discussion.
I apologize. I just remember I had Mr. Plumber in my sink,
Oh,
and
yes.
you're supposed to run water after 15 minutes, and I'm like, all of a sudden it's been longer than 15 minutes. So I just went and ran some water down. So thank you.
You're welcome. Well, I just
This is
find
life.
this to be just so. Let's get back to the inner sanctum. How do you begin to? There's people here that brought this up. I think it's an interesting point. How do we begin to
Mhm.
pierce that veil?
Well, in mindfulness meditation, you're sort of taught in like 5 or 6 stages. And the first is just to focus on your breathing. Focus on your inhalation and your exhalation. You know, Even if it's like 1 minute of just sitting and allowing the stillness to sort of settle in for a little bit.
Mhm.
A lot of people get the misconception that you're trying to stop thinking,
You can't
and
do
they
it.
think that if they keep, if when the thoughts come, then they failed. No, it's not. You focus on your breathing. And then you have another stage where you might focus on the physical sensations that might arise in your body. You might focus on, allow that, when thoughts start to come through your mind, that instead of focusing on the thoughts, because you're getting to a place where you learn that you are not your thoughts, you are that person who is aware that you're thinking, and you're the observer. Okay. This brain, this mind is going to think and is going to have negative stuff and positive stuff and all of that. Um, as one of my meditation mentors pointed out to me, it's sort of like imagine you're standing over a bridge, the overpass over a freeway or a highway. And imagine that the highway is your brain, right? Your
Yeah.
mind. And the cars are zooming by. So the cars are your thoughts, right? And you're looking at the car coming up to you, and then you just allow the car to pass. So you acknowledge, you see the car, you don't try to see who's in it and what they're doing and what they're saying, because that would drive you crazy.
Right.
You just
Right.
allow it to go right on by. And then the next car is going to go right on by. So the next thought is going to go by, and the next thought. And slowly you realize that you were not your thoughts. But also at the same time, if you want to really dig deep, when a particular thought comes up, you evaluate the thought and you think, why am I thinking this? The what's, the whys, the hows, without judgment. If you can get to a place where you can realize that you're not your thoughts, you're just observing. So it's almost like you're a person observing someone else thinking.
Wow. Wow. I was just, as you were saying that, I was thinking as well, is that I I'm at this place now where when I walk around, it's like I always see myself as with my spear. That's one
Mm-hmm.
of the first things I learned in my meditative
Mm-hmm.
practice was that I built my own spear.
Mm-hmm.
So when I have the thoughts that come in, because life will do that,
Mm-hmm.
you're going to react to stimuli. That
Mm-hmm.
it's always now I always try to say, well, what is my spear doing? Is this like being attacking it? Is it trying to change the color?
Mm-hmm.
And when I get myself in points, because we're all human, where you get yourself into a funk and you're
Mm-hmm.
trying to get
Yes.
out, it's that I'm beginning to see it. All right, let's get back to what is really the problem here. Is it fear?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because it
Right.
it all comes down to fear.
Yes.
It
There's
does.
love and there's fear.
Yeah, yeah.
It's really, it's all a spectrum.
And we're so fear-based minded.
Mm-hmm.
It's just like you were saying when we started the program, 24/7 channel cable news, which is
But
all
we
designed.
but the good thing is we can discipline ourselves and train ourselves little by little. It takes time and it's a constant journey. And you can go a mile or two or three and still regress a little bit, but
Yeah,
you keep
yeah,
going,
yeah.
you keep going, you miss the mark a little bit, but you keep going. It's a practice. And as you practice it and practice it, you become better at it.
You do. You
I'll give
really.
you an example, because you never want to think that you're there,
No.
right? I remember this is a couple of years ago, and I was dropping my son off at his high school. And as I was leaving the parking lot, I dropped him off at the school, went around the parking lot so I could start leaving. And as I'm driving, I kid you not, I'm driving, this mother drove right in front of me and stopped her car. And I had to slam on my brakes. And I was just like, what the? And it wasn't that I wasn't yelling at her. I just like, what the blankety blank was this woman thinking? And then as I drove forward, I was just like, wow, Tamu, okay, we need to work on the tempo a little bit. And
I'm
so
sorry.
that happened. And see, the thing is, I had to immediately enact compassion for
Yes.
myself, because in order for us to have compassion for other people, we have to first have compassion for ourselves. Now,
Oh,
I could have went into this depression and think, wow, I'm not as enlightened as I thought I was. I'm not as this or that, you know, it was a whole big old ego trip. Now it's just like, okay, well, I see I still have some things that I have to work on, and
Imagine.
that's okay.
And because we all do, you know,
Yes. And
that
yes, I
is,
do talk to myself.
well, and that's just it. I have come to realize that all of us have multiple conversations going on in our brain. I mean, it's people say, well, I don't have those thoughts. Yeah, you do. We all
Mhm.
talk to ourselves. You know,
Yes,
it is.
yes. And the thing is, most of the time we don't realize that we talk to ourselves.
Eh,
So when you sit and practice, and then you begin to realize, and then you learn how to separate your true self, your true voice from that conditioned lower bass voice.
In fact, I'll just say this: if you and I could hear most of the time what people in their self-talk, we
Hmm.
would come up to that person and go, just who do you think you are talking to that person like that?
Yeah.
But that's what we
Yes.
do. I mean,
Yes.
we are
Yes.
our worst critics. We are worst condemners.
Self abuse.
Oh, and I mean, talk bad about ourselves. Oh man.
I mean, even when I hear people say out loud, "Oh, I'm so stupid. I did this. Oh, I'm so stupid." And I just, I'm learning myself to not only I stop saying it, but to make sure I don't think it, because all of those little things that we say builds up in our subconscious mind. And so I encourage people, it's like, don't talk so bad about yourself. That's not good.
And it's, I believe it's the root problem to so many of our society ills is that we don't know how to talk to ourselves, right? And I'll say this because this is really life, is that most people enter this world and it's the parents that
Hmm.
so degrade the soul, and as that's core image, no matter how successful that person becomes, we all have it. It's all possessed within us. And maybe not all of us. Maybe, Tamu, there are those who are raised in an environment that encourages self development. I
Well,
don't
that
know.
is what I try to do with my children,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
try to speak positive words to them,
You
at
learned
all
that, didn't you?
times. Right, because number one, we are born as wild, creative, authentic beings. I mean, if you've been, I don't know if you have children or not, but if you've been around children, children have no censor. They will tell you like it is. They will love you, but they will tell you, like I was up at the park and today my 7-year-old says, I see your hair in your armpits. You got armpit hair like a man. And I'm just like, it's not that
Oh,
long. Okay, I do shave occasionally. It's not that long. But, I was just like, okay, you don't have to talk so loud. But,
I
you know,
love it.
um, we are born wild and free,
Yes, we are.
and then we become domesticated. That's not what you're supposed to say. This is what you're supposed to do. So, we have to learn to re-domesticate ourselves. And that's one of the reasons why, and I get no financial kickback from this book, but this is one of the reasons why I love the 4 agreements.
The Four Agreements.
Have you heard of it before?
I have actually have,
Okay.
but I have not
So
taken the time to read that.
the 4 agreements, if you're okay, if I can share just
Sure.
briefly what
Yeah,
the four
please.
agreements are.
Yes, please do.
Okay. Oh, my glasses. Let me just wipe my glasses right quick so I can actually see. I need my glasses to read a lot of the times, once you become a woman of a certain age.
It happens to all of us.
Yes.
I'm just
So,
thankful that we have glasses.
oh, yes,
Yeah.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. So the 4 agreements. So basically, in the back, it says, in the 4 agreements, Don Miguel Ruiz reveals the source of self limiting beliefs that rob us of joy and create needless suffering. Based on ancient Toltec wisdom, The four agreements offer a powerful code of conduct that can rapidly transform our lives to a new experience of freedom, true happiness, and love. So basically, it's about the agreements we make with society, the agreements that are domesticated into us. And he gives us four agreements that we can make with ourselves that can totally transform our lives. The first is be impeccable with your word.
Ooh.
Speak with integrity. Say only what you mean. Avoid using words to speak against yourself or to gossip about others. Use the power of your word in the direction of truth and love. And see, that's important because if we lose our keys and say, oh, we're so stupid, or if we lock our car door and say, oh, we're so stupid, we're not being impeccable with our words. You know, we're not speaking with integrity. We're actually speaking against ourselves. And our little 3-year-old subconscious mind is soaking that in. So by the time when we say, oh, we want to start our own business, oh, you can't do that. You're stupid. You'll never do this right. You know, it comes up. So the next agreement is don't take anything personally. Nothing others do is because of you. What others say and do is a projection of their own reality, their own dream. When you are immune to the opinions and actions of others, you won't be the victim of needless suffering. And that, you know, that's really true. You know, like when a friend turns on you and says something like really cruel to you, you know, you have to step back and, you know, you can either like, oh, I feel so bad about myself. I shouldn't this or that. It's like, no, that's more reflection on that person than you. Okay.
Yeah, but we all do that so
Yes,
easily.
we all do that. And that is why, I mean, this is not a super big book. I mean, this should be required reading for every 12-year-old and up. So the third agreement is don't make assumptions. I am so good with making assumptions.
What is it? It makes an ass out of you and me. Am I right?
Find the courage to ask questions and to express what you really want. Communicate with others as clearly as you can to avoid misunderstandings, sadness, and drama. With just this one agreement, you can completely transform your life.
Mm.
And the fourth one is always do your best. Your best is going to change from moment to moment. It will be different when you are healthy as opposed to sick. Under any circumstance, simply do your best and you will avoid self judgment, self abuse, and regret.
So, just as I heard that,
Mm-hmm.
how I begin to sum this up in my mind is this is that where we have religion and we have the antithesis of both the good and the bad,
Mm-hmm.
and man walks in between that,
Yes.
is that each of us are our own judges, our own juries, our own executioners.
Yes.
And as I was talking with Barbara earlier,
Mm-hmm.
Tamu,
Mm-hmm.
I asked her this question because we were talking about the ability to experience joy.
Yes.
And I told her, I don't see joy in the world anymore. I don't see it in evidence. I don't see it. And when I say this, even on an individual level, I see so many unhappy people that they have no joy. And I asked her, I said, when was the last time that mankind collectively celebrated joy together at the same time? And our conclusion was never. But we suffer in misery together. I mean, we all can experience the events of 9/11 throughout mankind's history. Is that communication now is so rapid and instantaneously, we're
Mm-hmm.
experiencing it more and more.
Right. Right.
But where's the joy?
Well, that is where we come into play. You
Yes.
know, this ride is not over yet. This
There we
cycle
go.
has not come to an end yet. And the little bit that I'm awake, that you're awake, that the other people in the chat room is awake, we can use that little bit of awakeness. I don't even know if that's a word, of
I like it.
awakeness
I like it. I like it.
to add to it, to keep going, to build up. And yes, there's going to be times when we fall, when we falter, when we sin, which means to miss the mark.
Yep. That's what it really is, folks.
But we can do this. We are the ones that we have been waiting for. There's no one else that's going to do it for us. So we start a little bit here. We create another group here, and then one person from that group goes on and create another group. We have to change the record that keeps playing in our mind, that the
Yes.
world is a horrible place, that this or that. That is the test. That is the lesson. That is the alchemy.
That is the alchemy. Exactly. And as
Changing, getting that dross off and creating pure gold. I had the experience, myself and my 7-year-old, of raising two baby caterpillar. Okay. And I learned something that I never knew. See, I thought, I didn't, the woman who gave me the caterpillar, she explained it to me. She said that the caterpillar has its chrysalis actually inside of its body. It's not something that it manufactures, it's actually inside of its body. And a caterpillar actually splits itself right down the middle of its back and basically turns inside out and wiggles and wiggles and wiggles and wiggles until the chrysalis completely seals up. And so for me, that's inspiration. We have within us, in our DNA, in our inner core, everything that we need to create a new self, to get our seed to grow. The seed of our soul is planted in this earth. Our body is a part of the earth. And see, I learned this from Chris. So I thank Chris for explaining this new dimension to me. We're not completely and totally alive in that celestial dimension of life that is really truly living. We are in a gestation period, and either we're going to sink or we're going to reach towards the light and grow. And that light is the inner light, that the photons in our
yes.
cerebral spinal fluid. We
Hey,
have the light within us, and we have to remember that. And it takes work. It's not for the faint of heart. It takes work. And there is beauty, and that beauty is within. And this little light of mine, I'm going to let it shine.
you
That's a
see,
beautiful song.
I love it. I love it. And it's something I've been saying all along, folks. We've got that spark of divinity. And now medical science is actually showing that to be the case.
Photons,
Photons
baby.
living.
Yes.
And I can tell you, having gone through, I think I went through 11 lumbar punctures.
Mm-hmm.
Um, those are spinal taps for the
Mm-hmm.
common guy. And I can tell you, um, yeah, it's I had never solved it that away. That was great. Well, Tamu, I
Yeah.
know we've really gone over what I had was wanting to keep you, but I tell you, I could just got to have you back. So,
I would love to. I
okay,
would love
we were
to.
going to do that. And how can people get in touch with you?
If you go to YouTube and put in the search engine Tamu, you see my name
Right
right
there.
down there, right
Yeah.
there. Tamu Ngina, Tamu space N is in Nancy, Gina, which
It's
my name
Nagina. See, I know how to
Ngina.
say it. Nagina.
Yes, Ngina. It means sweet one who serves. And yes, that is my legal from birth name that my mother gave me when she was gestating me. She was teaching herself Swahili. And I always joke and say, thank God she wasn't teaching herself Klingon.
There we go.
Don't
Could
tell
be
him
a
about my
whole different conversation. Could be. You know, I love that when you were saying gestation, not to digress here, but I heard one of the very unique ways of how the soul,
Mm-hmm.
spirit, and body come together. And
Mm-hmm.
it's actually at the moment of inception that
Mm-hmm.
the soul immediately attaches to that spark of life.
Okay.
And as the embryo is growing into
Mm-hmm.
the fetus,
Mm-hmm.
so is the soul.
Right. I have been gestated for babies.
Unique.
I can testify that every single one of my pregnancies, their personality was evident when I was pregnant with them.
Wow.
My eldest son, when I was pregnant with him, he constantly kicked me. I could lay down at night and see his leg puncturing out of my stomach and going across I would have to stop it, calm down. I'm trying to sleep and move him. And so when he was little, he was the kid that had to be right in your face. You had to be interacting with him all the time, you
Wow.
know. Then my second son, he was quiet as a mouse. He didn't move. I probably went to the doctor 2 or 3 times just to check to make sure he was still alive.
Like,
And when he was a little one, he was always that kid. He didn't like a lot of loud noise. It's like, where's Jordan? That's the physicist.
yes.
Where's Jordan? He would be upstairs at the window with his face pressed against the screen, looking. I'm like, what are you doing, Jordan? Um, Not even 3 years old. And he would say, I need my private time. And I was like, okay, there you
Wow.
go.
Fabulous.
All of my kids, they were very different when they were gestating, and their personalities really matched once they were born. So I definitely believe that.
You see, as one, I think it was Stormy. And Stormy,
Mm-hmm.
I would agree with you. We got one of our subscribers, and she's Indian and
Okay.
Native American Indian. And
Uh-huh.
one of the things that I agree, and I've heard this from several of the women, that we've lost. The misconception is this, guys. We always had this idea that in the hunter gatherers, and then when we moved into more of an agrarian society, that we always thought it was the men who held the councils.
Mm-hmm.
Actually, what it is in many cultures, it was actually the elderly women that were, in fact, the decision makers in the tribe, in the councils. And it
Mm-hmm.
was the men who would carry out the decision of the
Mm.
women.
That makes sense. It
Yeah.
makes sense. And I really do think that makes sense because for those of you that have raised children, if you think, like, for instance, and this isn't always, but this is generally, when there are exceptions to the rule, when the kids are getting ready to go out with dad, mom is the one that says, do you have this, do you have that, do you have this, do you have that, because mom sees all the 50 million ways that things could go west of Sunday. And that is probably one of the reasons why women leave the houses with these big old coach bags,
Yeah.
with these
Yeah.
big bags, and guys have the wallet because they're
Yeah.
just all about right to the point. And the women, they have, okay, I got tissues in there, I got antibacterial ointment, I got lotion. They have, so it makes sense. And there's
See?
nothing wrong with that
No.
because, the yin and the yang, it's different, it's equal, but different. We are not the same. And I think that to neutralize and neuter the sexes and say, you're just all the same, totally negates the lessons that we're to learn in this life and how we're supposed to work together.
Bingo, folks. Bingo. And it's so true that, you know, one of the things that I think of our society would get its proverbial head anyway. Y'all know what I mean. That if we could figure this thing out and stop the divide, And so you're right. We are taking that we're planting the seeds. Listen, the fact that we could come and have this forum, nearly discussing for an hour and a half here about life.
Yes.
Yeah. And I don't believe, as I keep saying, I think so often, Tamu, our souls are frozen.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't think it's an issue. I said dead soul, but I really think it's more of the frozen soul.
Mm-hmm.
That it's the fact that hopefully
Asleep.
asleep. And I mean, yeah, think about when a part of our body goes to sleep, your hand.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
Numb.
numb, numb. But
But
we're
we can
getting
wake
better.
up.
We are,
Yes,
and
we
we
can
are
wake
waking
up
up.
step
That's
by
what I
step.
was, Barbara and I were talking on that and got folks, I'm going to post that interview that I think that we are in a place now. It's happening all over the world. She says that she's
Yes.
seen it. You're seeing it
Yes.
everywhere I talk
Yes.
to.
Yes.
People are coming out of the fog, the fume,
Yes.
and saying, I know the answer is within me. I just need to know how to get there.
Right.
And
And we
that's
can
what
get
you
there
do.
together.
Yes.
Collectively, we each separately must do our own work. But, I'm a big believer that no man is a rock, no woman is an island. We need each other. We need
Oh,
each other.
more than ever, folks. And we're going to realize that it's not male and female. It's what it is. It's life energies.
Mm-hmm.
That's what they are. And as I'm learning this, particularly from an alchemist point of view, is that our life energy is always going to run against the energy force itself.
Mm-hmm.
We call it the piranha, we call it chi, we call it a number of different things, but that is what it is that I think continues to make this life so of adventure. And it's
And as we go within, we learn how to connect with our life energy. We learn how to connect with that super consciousness, which is the collective consciousness. But again, I would encourage people to be mindful, to be uh, disciplined, and be aware of what you feed your subconscious, because your thoughts, your life, how your life manifests is a direct result of what you feed your subconscious. Um, as I mentioned earlier, I was a person who was never into horror or gore, but I would have to admit that I did get into The Walking Dead. Okay. I watched The Walking Dead probably for the first 3 seasons. And yes, I had to watch it. It had to be on mute and I had to cover my eyes a lot because it was pretty gory. But I did appreciate the character development. So there were things about it from a psychological point of view that I really did enjoy, and how people would survive what if. But as time went on, it just really seemed like the violence became its own character.
yeah.
That and I noticed that the opening scene of a season, I my emotions went from here to here to here to here, and I would be utterly exhausted and, quite frankly, terrified by the time the episode was over. And I remember speaking to a friend of mine, and he said, "You know what? You would feel a lot better if you were not watching The Walking Dead." And I thought about it, and I was just like, you know what? You're right. And when
Yeah.
the season started, I made the choice to choose my soul. And I will tell you that once I stopped watching The Walking Dead, I found my spiritual progress to be that much more afterwards. It's
Excellent.
even because even though my conscious mind knows that it's not real, okay? I know that these are actors. I know that it's fake, but my subconscious and my emotions, it was very real and it was very intense. And I would be in tears
The
just as much as
mind,
I would be in laughter and joy.
yeah.
So,
And the mind, the one thing I found out about why we like being scared, it does release those endorphins, and But
But
it
there's
gets
other ways of doing it.
exactly. And I don't,
Meditation
I
can
don't,
release those endorphins.
I don't like
Other
being
things,
afraid. It's like,
yes, there's
okay,
other more pleasurable things that release
thank
those
you.
endorphins.
Thank
So,
you. Well, Tamu, thank you, my dear. Do you have a website, by the way?
my website is www, and you do have to put that in front of it because I can't figure out how to resolve it without www.tamungina.com. It does need to be updated, and I keep saying that, and I will eventually. But that is my website.
Okay.
You can contact me through there,
Okay.
and like I said, you can find me on YouTube at my
And
name, and if you search Facebook and put holistic artist, Tamu Ngina holistic artist, that takes you to my business page, my ministry
excellent.
page.
Excellent. Excellent. And that has your email address and your contact information.
Yes, I'm on my um, website.
Okay.
It does.
All right.
Yes,
Well, we'll
it
have you back
does.
probably next week. I think this
Uh-huh.
is something that I think people can really begin to build on, and I'd like to build on it.
Yes, we can
Okay.
do this. We
I
can
agree.
do it. We have the power within us. We are
I agree.
co-creators.
See, and that's what it's all about, folks. It's really about, listen, I believe this, that we've got our core 100 group and it's growing and it's being organized now. Carol has come in, and I got to tell you what, this is all a part of this, Tamu. It's our
Hmm.
discussion here. It's now people see the possibility. And I've learned one thing in life:
Yes.
when people realize that the possibility is real, it becomes real.
Yes, and it is real. And we have to, we will have our moments where we will feel down. We will have our moments where we cry. You know, my sink was blocked up like bad. I'm like, oh my
Yeah,
God, I'm gonna have to call the landlord. I burned my thumb
she
lighting
did.
my candle.
Yep.
But you know what? I underneath it all, I know, you know what? Gamze Ya'avor, which in Hebrew means this too shall pass. Okay.
Ah,
My state of sadness, my state of happiness is not me, is not you. We are pure ground of being. We are that presence that is aware of this drama that's playing out in front of us.
yeah. I'll leave everyone with this one thing I learned from my Hebrews friends. May there be
Mhm.
nothing missing or nothing broken found in your life. I believe that's what shalom means, right?
Yes, shalom means perfect. It's related to the word shalem, which means whole and complete. So shalom is peace, but it's that perfect, complete, whole peace.
And so that's what we'll leave our listeners with. Thank you, folks. We wish you shalom in your lives, and
Shalom.
we will talk to you again real soon. Y'all be good to one another. Thank
Thank
you,
you.
Tamu.
Peace and great bliss.